Tonight, presidency justifies qualifies suspension of Twitter but describes it as temporary as Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation orders prosecution of ban offenders amid more reactions on decision. Save Nigeria from collapse, civil society groups call on leaders and the international community to prevent the country from sliding into a failed state. At least 66 people reported killed in attacks launched by gunmen on several communities in Dako-Wasagu local government area of Kebbi State. And the G7 group countries reach a historic deal to make multinational companies pay more tax.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's total foreign trade rises by about 7% to 9.7 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2021.
Twitter operations may have been suspended in Nigeria, but the nation is abuzz with the fallout of that decision. The presidency has justified and qualified the ban, describing its decision as a temporary measure. In a statement, the president's media aide, Mr. Garba Shehu, explained that the removal of President Muhammadu Buhari's tweets was disappointing, noting that the censoring seemed based on a misunderstanding of the challenges Nigeria currently faces. In the words of the presidential aide, the temporary suspension of Twitter is not just a response to the removal of the president's post. There has been a litany of problems with the social media platform in Nigeria where misinformation and fake news spread through it, and it has had real-world violent consequences. All the while, the company has escaped accountability. It further adds that the president has been warning against what he terms the destructive influences of social media, and that government's action is not a reaction to Twitter's deletion of his tweet. Defending the president's comment, Mr. Shehu notes, the tweet was not a threat, but a statement of fact. A terrorist organization, IPOB, poses a significant threat to the safety and security of Nigerian citizens. When the president said that they will be treated in a language they understand, he merely reiterated that their force shall be met with force. It's a basic principle of security service response world over. He says this is not a promotion of hate, but upholding citizens' right to freedom from harm. Many Twitter users in the country today woke up having difficulty accessing their pages on the microblogging website after the federal government's ban came into effect. This comes after telecom operators began to implement the restriction on Twitter. However, some opted to bypass that hurdle using a virtual private network, also known as VPN. The Association of Licensed Telecommunication Operators of Nigeria said it had received directives from the industry regulator to suspend access to Twitter. The president of Alton, Mr. Benga Adebayo, said the association had received formal instructions from the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, that's the industry regulator, to suspend access to Twitter. Alton says it also conducted a robust assessment of the request in accordance with internationally accepted principles and will continue to engage all relevant authorities as well as stakeholders. The federal government appears bent on taking every measure to ensure its order suspending Twitter operations in the country is fully complied with. To this end, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, has directed the immediate prosecution of offenders. In a statement, Mr. Malami asked the Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation at his office to swing into action and begin the process of prosecution of violators of the order. He asked the Director of Public Prosecution to work with the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, National Communications Commission, NCC, and other relevant government agencies to ensure the speedy prosecution of offenders. And reactions to this development has been swift, from federal lawmakers to governors, political parties, and the U.S. government, amongst others. The Minority Caucus in the House of Representatives has described the suspension as a clear violation of freedom of speech and other democratic rights and tenets as provided by the 1999 Constitution. The minority leader, Mr. Ndudi Elumelu, says this suspension is provocative, obnoxious, and unjustifiable. He cautions that the development is capable of leading to further restiveness amongst Nigerians and worsen the situation in the country. And the governor of Oyo State is also reacting to the suspension. Governor Seyi Makinde has asked the federal government not to hamper the operations of thousands of businesses and services with its decision. He called for due consideration from the government on the matter, saying that Twitter has become the platform for young people and all Nigerians to exercise their fundamental right to express and publish an opinion. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, says the directive by the government to arrest and prosecute any Nigerian using Twitter is unconstitutional, illegal, null, and completely of no effect. It adds that the directive is not only downright ludicrous, but shows the desperation by the Buhari presidency to muzzle, victimize, clamp down on innocent citizens and foist a totalitarian system on the country. Meanwhile, the ruling All Progressive Congress, APC, has defended the suspension of Twitter, saying the decision was born out of national interest. It maintains that we are a democratic and independent nation and citizens should defend our sovereignty by supporting the federal government's decision. Says it will ensure that Nigerians are again able to access the microblogging site. It expressed concern about the restrictions on its operations in the country on its public policy handle, noting that access to open internet is an essential human right. In the words of Twitter, we are deeply concerned by the blocking of Twitter in Nigeria. Access to the free and #open internet is an essential human right in modern society. We will work to restore access for all those in Nigeria who rely on Twitter to communicate and connect with the world. Also wading into the face-off between the federal government and Twitter, legal practitioner and rights activist Ayobe believes that it's all a fallout of the inability of the Ministry of Information to properly handle the issues arising from social media engagement. While admitting that the president might have meant no harm in his comment on dealing with troublemakers in the country, she noted that people should be allowed to express their views on issues. She made a comment on our program, Sunrise.
The Ministry of Information basically is admitting failure by saying we can't answer the issues that arise on Twitter, and therefore this is how we will control it. And the fact is that we should understand that it's not just Twitter, it's all the, as they say, over-the-top media. So there are always going to be stories that need to be corrected. Yeah. And the question is that, are you going to say that, well, because we can hold the necks of certain media outlets, our job is less, we don't have to do so much work, because that's how it comes across. I had the misfortune of not having read the offending tweet that was deleted. And so I was, and I had seen the president talking on to the INEC commissioners when they complained about their polling stations being attacked and so on. And I understood him to be saying that, look, this kind of thing can lead to trouble. And those of us who went through a war, a civil war, don't want to see that again. And that's why we are going to come down hard on those. So that's how I understood it. There are different ways of interpreting. And as I said, to me, I think the essential thing is that whether you are a youth or whether you are an elderly person like me, what you're entitled to expect from your government is that when they see laws being broken, then they should take up the breaking of those laws, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's attacking INEC stations or so on. But you shouldn't let it look as though you are actually having a petty reaction.
Meanwhile, the diplomatic missions of Canada, the European Union delegation to Nigeria, the Republic of Ireland, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America have conveyed disappointment over the government of Nigeria's announcement suspending Twitter and proposing registration requirements for other social media. They strongly support the fundamental human rights of free expression and access to information as a pillar of democracy in Nigeria as around the world, and these rights apply online as well as offline. Banning systems of expression is not the answer. These measures inhibit access to information and commerce at precisely the moment when Nigeria needs to foster inclusive dialogue and expression of opinions, as well as share vital information in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. The path to a more secure Nigeria lies in more, not less. Communication to accompany the concerted effort of Nigeria's citizens is fulsome dialogue towards unity, peace and prosperity. As Nigeria partners, we stand ready to assist in achieving these goals. To other stories now, more Nigerians are not only concerned about the current state of affairs in the country, but are also speaking up on what they consider ways to prevent an escalation. Members of the Nigeria Progressive Coalition and the Red Card Movement are asking the international community to intervene and save Nigeria from disintegration. They were speaking at a conference in the nation's capital, Abuja, where they are insisting that Nigerians must take the lead in saving the country from people who they describe as career politicians.
Deliberations about the political survival of Nigeria have dominated public conversations in recent times, and it is also the crux of the discussions here as members of the Nigeria Progressives Coalition and the Red Card Movement converge on the Yaradua Center in Abuja. For some of the participants, events in the last 1 year have shown that 60 years after political independence, some citizens still have doubt about the rightness of the decision to live together in one country.
In a country like Nigeria, that we are celebrating about 60 years of our political independence, we are still grappling with issues of development, issues of unity, and we are still questioning ourselves whether this union is going to the right direction, or there is a need for us to retrace our step, reset, reconfigure, restructure our journey to the future as a people and also as a nation.
There have been several agitations for self-determination in Nigeria. Some of these agitations continue to threaten the corporate existence of the nation. For the convener of this conference, the international community must not stand aloof.
Because Nigeria is in crisis and is at a critical junction between disintegration and reconfiguration, at the Nigerian Progressive Coalition and the Red Card Movement, we choose reconfiguration, a repurposing of the Nigerian nation to meet the challenges of the 21st century. The international community must be concerned and must equally show interest in what happens in Nigeria. As the most populous African nation, continuous crises and secessionist threats in Nigeria have implications on global migration. The consequences of Nigeria falling into deeper crises will lead to a major global disruption, famine, migration, and health implications.
Nigerians are in search of solutions to the problems bedeviling the country. And for some of these participants, the masses must take the lead in the project to build a country that works for all.
There is a conspiracy against the poor by the elite, but that conspiracy is accentuated by our own inability to be interested in the things that matters to us. We all have a role as citizens that we neglect, and we have made an industry of complaining and excuses.
There are ongoing national efforts to discuss and find solutions to problems threatening Nigeria's political survival. But whether or not these efforts will produce the desired results at the end of the day will depend on the sincerity and will of the relevant authorities to implement the outcomes of these decisions.
In part two, after the break, at least 66 people reported killed in attacks launched by gunmen on several communities in Danko-Wasagu local government area of Kebbi State. Plus, a look at the plight of children in the conflict-ravaged areas of the Northeast. Stay with us. just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Presidency qualifies suspension of Twitter but describes it as temporary as Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation orders prosecution of ban offenders amid more reactions on decision. Save Nigeria from collapse, civil society groups call on leaders and the international community to prevent the country from sliding into a failed state. At least 66 people reported killed in attacks launched by gunmen on several communities in Danko-Wasagu local government area of Kebbi State. And G7 group countries reach a historic deal to make multinational companies pay more tax. Those are members of a women's group under the umbrella of Amalgamation of Northern Women Association, marching on the streets of Abuja and demanding a referendum to address the calls for separation in the country. The women say they do not want another war, as they usually bear the heavy burden of acts of insurrection as well as terrorism. They also condemn the violence in the eastern parts of the country, calling on the government to do everything, including conducting a referendum to end it.
Nigeria history has shown that women carry the heavy burden of war and act of insurrection and terrorism. We have gone through it from 1967 to 1971. Women, can we allow this to happen again? No! No! It is for this reason that we come together today and say we don't want another war, another insurrection. Will we allow this to continue? No! We therefore unanimously call on President Muhammad Buhari as the leader and father of the country and the leadership of the National Assembly, President of the Senate, Dr. Ahmad Lawal, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Hon. Femi Gbajabiamila, to immediately call for a referendum in the country. Let people choose to live in peace in Nigeria or leave. Any other group or nationality that wants to sit or exercise their right for self-determination, like the Southeast has been agitated for the seat to be allowed to live Nigeria peacefully without resorting a second civil war. Let Mr. President allow for a referendum that will make Igbo realize their long-time dream of being a Biafran nation.
Down south in Abia State, another group of Nigerians have also taken to the streets to protest against violence. Members of the Joint National Association of Persons with Disability in the Southeast Zone marched to the office of a cleric and a former chaplain of the Aso Rock Chapel, Bishop Sunday Onuha, where they expressed concern over the alarming insecurity and crisis in different parts of the country. They are appealing to the president to convene a peace dialogue in the face of the insecurity in the country.
We are here for peace because of what is happening in the country. Killing, insecurity, bandits all over. That we are saying here that we, persons with disability, are the most vulnerable, the worst hit in times of crisis. That when people with legs, when people with vision, when people that are able-bodied will be running away, dodging and escaping for their dear lives. We, persons with disability, we cannot do that. We cannot help ourselves.
From Abia, we move to Imo State, where Christian leaders are also concerned about the present security situation there. They've sued for peace and they are calling on all aggrieved persons to sheath their swords and ensure that lasting peace is restored in the state. The leaders, who are drawn from different Christian denominations, said Imo State is not known for killing, bloodshed and destruction of property, but a religious, hospitable and hard-working place. After a closed-door meeting with the governor, Hope Uzodinma, the prelate, Methodist Church of Nigeria, His Eminence Samuel Uche, says as a religious group, their role is to ensure that all aggrieved persons are reconciled in order to return peace to the state. He also asks youth to avoid being hired to cause mayhem and disrupt the peace.
We want peace in our state, and we'll take steps to bring peace to our state. Imo is not known for killing, for bloodshedding, for destruction of lives and property. We are not known for that. We are known for labor, dignity of labor, industry. That's how we are known, and we are very religious. I want to say that 95% of Imo lives are Christians. So what is happening in our state is disturbing us. We will make sure that peace returns. Anybody that is aggrieved, we will reconcile them to each other and make sure that there is peace in Imo State. Because without peace in Imo State, nothing moves on. And nobody should allow himself or herself to be hired as unknown gunmen or bandits or whatever to destroy either federal government property or any property. It does not do us any good.
From the south to the north, at least 66 people are said to have been killed in attacks launched by gunmen on several communities in Dako-Wasagu local government area of Kebbi State. The spokesperson of the State Police Command, Nafiu Abubakar, told Channels Television that the attacks took place on Thursday, while information about the incident could not get out due to the remoteness of the settlements. Kebbi is among the states in the northwest where bandits have been active in recent times, although relatively on a low scale. The police spokesperson says mobile policemen are currently trailing the perpetrators.
We received some information that a gang of bandits invaded about 7 villages in Dako-Wasagu local government area of Kebbi State. On receipt of the information, the Commissioner of Police, Kebbi State Police Command, the Identity Identity MNI, swiftly directed the squadron commander on Operation Ganwa deployed in Zuru air axis and the area commander Zuru to move to the scene with immediate effect in order to arrest the perpetrators of such disturbing acts. Right now they are there combing the forest with the aim of arresting the unscrupulous elements. In December, the CP directed the GC State CID to move with his detectives to the scene in order to conduct thorough investigation with aim to reveal the circumstances surrounding the ugly incidents. Well, for now, we recorded 66 casualties, and the number of injured people we are compiling our report right now. We'll give you that one later.
Still on security matters, but this time in Kaduna State, where 5 people have been killed and 2 others injured after bandits attacked communities in Igabi and Jukun local government areas. The Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Mr. Samuel Aruwan, said the building belonging to the Assemblies of God Church and a house were burnt by the attackers in Kebbi village, where 2 people died. Spouses of some pastors also sustained injuries and are currently receiving medical attention in a private facility. Security agencies also reported the killing of 3 travelers along the Kaduna-Zaria Road in the Igabi local government area. Governor Nasir El-Rufai has sent his condolences to the families of those who died while praying for the speedy recovery of the injured. He also directed the Kaduna State Emergency Management Agency to carry out an assessment at the church and the other affected buildings in Kebbi village. As the Northeast insurgency enters its 12th year, over 1.2 million people are facing displacement. Officials say 60% of this figure are children. The result, child poverty.
Children and their parents in a displaced people's camp scramble for a place in this school bus, evacuating families displaced by insurgency to a permanent shelter provided by the government. The government is worried about loss of identity for children born in the middle of the crisis. After 7 years, life in this camp is no longer sustainable.
It's hard getting food to eat. There are no good shelters, and the sun is very hot. We go through a lot. Now the people are going because Governor Zulum said that place is big enough to accommodate us. Anyone that wants to stay there can go. I have been attending a school here, but I pray they enroll us into schools at the place we are going so that we can study and be successful in future and help our mothers.
On this day, the evacuation of IDPs becomes a school-free day for children in the host community. At their tender age, they recognize money-making opportunities, and the day is spent scavenging items they can sell to fend for their needs.
I do woodwork, wheelbarrow pushing, or pick metals from Ajokuta steel. I earn between 500 to 1,000 naira, which I save. I use it to buy Salah clothes and shoes, and I also give alms from it.
Some 51,000 orphans and children separated from their parents were recovered from the insurgency-hit areas. The government and development partners are adopting foster parenting and integration to maintain family values.
Apart from the schooling, they stay in the camp. We are able to establish what we call parenting by the host community, especially those that they came together from their ancestral home. We used to engage them to take care of them. We call them foster mothers.
According to UNICEF, out of the 10.5 million Nigerian children currently out of school, the Northeast accounts for 60%. Beyond the smiling faces and the bliss of ignorance, the children must grope through their childhood uncertain about the future, the violence making things worse.
I'm beginning to think really in northeastern Nigeria, it is really one of the most challenging environments for a child to grow up to, for a family to raise their children in this environment with lack of livelihood, no farming availability. It's really, really challenging.
While their parents agonize over their ancestral homes, which they were forced out of, 600,000 children seem to be at peace with displacement, as it's the only life they know.
When the news at 10 returns, Nigeria's total foreign trade rises by about 7% to 9.7 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2021. That's on Business News. Join us again. The Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, has flagged off the construction of facilities for the takeoff of the Pioneer College of Medical Sciences of the Rivers State University. The project at the college campus, which is located at the old site of the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital in the township area, was flagged off by the President of the Nigerian Medical Association, Dr. Innocent Uja. At the event, Governor Wike says his administration has performed well in Rivers State.
It's a gathering of renowned academics, medical experts and politicians as Governor Nyesom Wike flags off the construction of buildings at the campus of the Pioneer College of Medical Sciences of the Rivers State University. The project, according to Governor Wike, is another milestone in redefining medical education and healthcare service delivery in Nigeria.
We have given scholarship to our children, not less than 490, to read medicine and other related courses in Pamo University. And I've paid all the money, so that when I leave, nothing like the state does not want to pay my fees again. All our students that will attend Rivers State University will also be on scholarship. So I will pay for the bill that will make them to stay 5-6 years in university, so nobody can say that they have a problem.
Before flagging off the projects at the College of Medical Sciences, the President's Nigerian Medical Association hails the efforts of Governor Wike in pushing the frontiers of healthcare infrastructure in Rivers State.
It is a fact, based on evidence, that the health sector has received unprecedented attention under your administration, for which both the state branch and the national level of Nigerian Medical Association have nothing more to say than to say thank you. The ongoing construction and equipping of River State Hemodialysis and Kidney Transplant Center, again, is a model, and we will soon see that River State will become a medical tourism destination hub very soon.
Governor Wike was at the main campus of the Rivers State University to commission its Senate building. The structure, built in 11 months, was inaugurated by Senator George Sekibo from Rivers State.
Whatever you want, the government is here to do it for you. What I don't want to hear is solidarity strike. I don't want to hear that language.
The commissioning and flag-off exercises are part of the activities to mark Governor Nyesom Wike's 6th year in office.
Today is the World Environment Day, an event established by the United Nations and marked annually to raise awareness, support action, and drive changes for the environment. More groups continue to advocate environmental causes, and the collaboration between Green Hub Africa and the United Nations Information Center is one of such. To commemorate the day, experts gathered at a virtual event today to share insight on the restoration of the ecosystem.
Grass and farmlands, forests, fresh water, urban areas, among others, are a part of Nigeria's ecosystems. While citizens depend on these ecosystems for survival, Nigeria is confronted with severe environmental degradation challenges that require urgent attention as well as solutions. The second day of this virtual gathering of Green Hub Africa, in collaboration with the United Nations Information Center, seeks to discuss actions to be taken to halt the degradation of ecosystem.
Climate change is already affecting functioning and integrity of several ecosystems and is adding to the stress resulting from anthropogenic activities such as unsustainable land use practices. Now is the time for climate actions to restore our rich ecosystems from unbearable consequences of climate change.
It's the launch of a decade of restoring ecosystems, and momentum for the restoration is growing in some parts of the country, like Gombe State. At this panel session, talks revolve around restoration measures to rejuvenate the ecosystem and sustain biodiversity.
So we have a project of Gombe Goes Green, which is also called the 3G project. So the 3G project is a project that aims to plant 4 million trees in 4 years of both fruit and non-fruit bearing trees, with a target of planting 1 million trees per year.
The recurring question on a review of policies on climate change is one challenge the panelists say the country must confront.
Government needs to channel its policies towards incentivizing private sector investment. You need to design those policies in a way to attract those sort of investment.
It's a cross-fertilization thing. You know, both the private sector and the government sector, they should interact. It's not only at the financial level that discussion or engagement should take place. So it's a common feature all over the world when we talk about PPP. PPP, as we see, especially when it comes to these sustainable attributes and the rest.
Going out of this event, one thing that resonates is the collective responsibility of all to stabilize the climate, protect nature, and create a world where the Sustainable Development Goals can thrive.
A consultant anatomic and forensic pathologist, Professor John Obafunwa, has told the Lagos State Judicial Panel on Restitution for Victims of SARS-related abuses and other offences that the coroner's office conducted post-mortem autopsies on 99 bodies between the 20th and the 27th of October 2020. He made this disclosure while testifying before the panel on the October 20th, 2020 Lekki tollgate incident. Of these 99 bodies, the pathologist says that only 3 were identified as victims of the Lekki shooting. He proceeded to speak to the post-mortem report and cause of death of each of the 3 victims, all male.
The coroner instructed us to conduct autopsies on bodies that came in between the 20th or 21st and I think up to about the 24th. And we did the autopsies on the bodies. Not just Lekki, but cases from Aja, Surulere or something like Ikorodu, Fagba, Ikoyi prisons, and all those things, amounting to a total of 99. But I'm only here with the 3 for Lekki.
There were 99 bodies.
That's correct.
Yes. You have record.
Oh, yes.
When each of the bodies was brought in.
I can look for information as to when they were brought in.
You have record on how many bodies were brought in on the 20th and on the 21st.
I wouldn't know how many bodies came in on the 20th, 21st, out of the, I wouldn't know. I'll have to go and check that.
Okay.
But I can tell you that it was between the 20th and 24th that we had to do all the cases.
An appeal has been made to parents to ensure their children are vaccinated against the human papilloma virus known to cause cervical cancer. According to the medical director of the Federal Medical Center, Yola, Professor Anwar Abubakar, those affected with cervical cancer know the pains they go through, and there's a need for parents to be proactive in the prevention of HPV. He made the call at the flag-off of the vaccination exercise in Yola, the Adamawa State capital.
Human papilloma virus, or HPV, is the most common viral infection of the reproductive tract. There are more than 100 types of HPV, 14 of which are responsible for cancer in women globally. According to the WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer, 124,000 new cases were diagnosed in Nigeria in 2020, with 78,899 deaths recorded. The cancer cases include prostate, colorectal, lymphoma, liver cancer, leukemia in men, while women were diagnosed with breast, ovarian, cervix, colorectal, lymphoma cancers, amongst others. Vaccination to limit the risk is usually given early, and the Adamawa State Government and Medical Women Association of Nigeria are flagging off the HPV vaccination for children between the ages of 9 and 14 years for the prevention of cancer of the cervix.
Girls.
According to the medical experts, a comprehensive strategy based on vaccination against HPV has demonstrated to be cost-effective in nearly all countries, yet progress towards prevention is low, especially with the lack of equipment.
Globally, there are 570 cases seen per year in women and 60,000 cases seen in men every year, and to cancers attributable to human papilloma virus.
It's almost impossible to treat cancer in this country. However, the idea of M1 in preventive medicine, in preventing specifically the cervical cancer, is, I think, the only one that is feasible for our own community.
Nevertheless, health authorities in Yola are confident that HPV vaccination is still one of the best ways to lower the risk.
It is important, and I think as many people as possible should bring their children to get vaccinated. We hope you will be able to liaise with other organizations to escalate. I'm sure by the time people are fully mobilized, these doses may not be enough.
About 200 boys and girls are benefiting from the vaccination exercise to reduce the national burden of preventing children from the deadly human papillomavirus. Medical experts are advocating universal vaccination as the most effective strategy to eliminate cancer of the cervix.
For the latest in the world of business, here is Anne Wanwudu.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin with latest data coming from the National Bureau of Statistics, showing that Nigeria's total foreign trade rose to 9.7 trillion naira in the first quarter of this year. And that represents a 6.99% increase from values reported in the fourth quarter of last year and 14.13% higher year on year. Now let's further break down the statistics. It shows the export component stood at 2.9 billion naira, representing 29.79% of the total trade, while import was valued at 6.85 billion naira. The report explains that the higher level of import over export has resulted in a trade deficit valued at about 3 trillion naira. China topped countries with major trade imports, with Nigeria followed by the Netherlands, the United States, India, and Belgium. Meanwhile, the Federal Inland Revenue Service has announced the introduction of a new tax administration solution. It's called Tax Pro Max for filing Naira-denominated tax returns in the country. According to a public notice by the Revenue Agency, the new solution will come into effect from June the 7th to optimize tax payment processes. It also adds that the new platform has made it mandatory for all taxpayers to have a document identification number before they can submit their tax returns. The FIRS stresses that the Tax Pro Max will ease tax compliance and modernization of tax administration in Nigeria. Let's talk about the total value of transaction carried out this week at the investors and exporters window. At the forex market, it dropped by 24.75%, and that's in contrast to the previous week at $676.80 million. However, according to latest data issued by the FMDQ exchange, the weekly average NAFEX rate rose by 17 kobo to 410 naira 74 kobo against the dollar, compared to 410 naira 91 kobo to a dollar, which was recorded in the previous week. Meanwhile, at the BDC market, the naira fell against the US dollar by 8 naira to a dollar to close the week ended June the 4th, 2021. At the forex forwards and future markets, the total turnover for the week ended June the 4th was $1.06 million, representing a 14.49% decline compared to the previous week. Let's take a look at the domestic stock market. Its key indicators ended the first week of this month in the green, up by 1.23%, as bargain hunting countered some amount of sell pressure within 5 trading sessions. The industrial goods sector of the NSE was the best performer on the sectoral chart, as it recorded a 1.25% increase. And this is largely attributed to gains on the share price of Dangote Cement. The banking and the insurance sectors were all up 0.4% and 1.24%. While the consumer good as well as the oil and gas sector ended in the red this week. Volume and values of shares traded for were also higher at 4.3% and 0.8% in contrast to last week's turnover, and that reflects renewed interest by investors for some of the equities listed on the NSE. The shares of Sovereign Trust Insurance, Zenith Bank and Veritas Capital were all the most patronized stocks for this week, as they contributed 21.8% of the total volume of shares traded at the end of business this week. Meanwhile, University Press is top out of 33 gainers for the week, as it posted a 43.59% price jump in its share price. CWG leads 59 other losers, down by more than 26%, while the share price of 94 equities were unchanged within this week. And that's business news for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Onwawadu. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's back to you, Melinda.
Many thanks, Anne. And for what's up in the world of sports, here is Kayode Okikiolu.
Oyo State has emerged overall winner of the National Wheelchair Basketball Championship. Oyo State defeated Lagos 43-18 in the final held at the Indoor Sport Hall of the National Sports Stadium in Surulere, Lagos. Taiwo Duroju of Oyo State was voted the most valuable player of the competition, which featured 10 other states. Organizers say the competition will be used to select players for the national team in international tournaments. The Ministry of Youth and Sports Development has confirmed that it is working with the Nigeria Football Federation to produce a 10-year football master plan that will ensure youth football development. The ministry says the master plan will serve as a catalyst that will turn activities associated with football into key contributors to the national economy. Well, that's Sports News for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. It's back to Melinda on the news at 10.
Many thanks, Kayode. Finance ministers of the G7 group of advanced economies have reached a historic deal to make multinational companies pay more tax. The deal announced today among the United States, UK, France, Germany, Canada, Italy, Japan, and the EU could see billions of dollars flow to governments to pay off debts incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic. They also agreed in principle to a global minimum corporate tax rate of 15% to avoid countries undercutting each other. India is reportedly preparing to deal with a coronavirus infection peak of 37,000 cases a day in the future. The government in the capital city is also considering easing a lockdown. Here's the global update.
India's capital city, New Delhi, is also preparing for oxygen storage capacity of 420 tons. That's according to Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. Delhi was among those relaxing restrictions and will allow shops to open on alternate days. Shops with even numbers will open on one day, while those with odd numbers will open the next day. Overall, India has seen 120,529 new coronavirus infections emerge over the last 24 hours, while deaths have risen by 3,380. The country's case tally stands at 28.69 million, while 344,082 people have died.
I think the big issue for us was always going to be, is this
A British expert has called for acceleration of the United Kingdom's mass vaccination campaign as cares for more infectious Delta variant of COVID-19 are soaring in the country. UK regulators have approved the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for 12 to 15-year-olds, saying the benefits outweigh any risks. The move comes against a backdrop of a UK surge in cases of the Delta variant, which was first identified in India.
I think we know that vaccination is really important because it will stop the virus in its tracks. People who are vaccinated, even if they get infected, they don't produce as much virus. And anything we can do to stop the virus growing in our bodies will stop the spread.
The first cruise line to leave the port of Venice since the easing of coronavirus restrictions set out today as locals protested, demanding an end to ships passing through the lagoon city. The departure of the embassy orchestra en route for Croatia and Greece raises the long-standing issue of banning large vessels not far from the city's famed St. Mark's Square. Finally, China's Sinovac CEO Yi Weidong says the company is capable of providing more vaccine doses to the World Health Organization and other countries to help the global fight against the coronavirus pandemic. His remark comes days after the WHO validated the Sinovac CoronaVac COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use, making it the second China-developed vaccine to receive the WHO validation for emergency use. The Sinovac vaccine is an inactivated vaccine, and it is recommended for use in adults aged 18 years and older in a 2-dose schedule with a spacing of 2 to 4 weeks.
We'll make a substantial demand on that.
And the main news again. The presidency today justified and qualified the suspension of Twitter operations in the country, but described the decision as temporary, just as the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation ordered the prosecution of the offenders of the ban. This came amid more reactions trailing the suspension. Also today, there was a cry to save Nigeria from collapse as civil society groups called on leaders and the international community to prevent the country from sliding into a failed state. And the G7 group countries today reached a historic agreement to make multinational companies pay more tax. That's the news at 10 tonight. On behalf of the team, good night.